Hey everyone, my name is Emily Mayer, host of Breathe, Hope, Vote. Breathe, Hope, Vote is a podcast with the arena where we dive into the elections and legislative happenings across South Carolina. I'm a wife, a mom, a former candidate, senior manager at the Ford and Ford Group, and a contributor for the arena. The arena is South Carolina's only progressive media company, publishing commentary, interviews, and podcasts about everything going on in the Palmetto State. Check us out on Substack and make sure to subscribe and consider a paid subscription to get access to more content and support our work as progressive voices in South Carolina. Today, I am joined by a fantastic candidate. I have Dr. Octavia Amaechi here with us today. Octavia, thank you so much for joining us. Octavia, tell us a little bit about you and your race and let people know why they should care, even if they don't live in the upstate.
All right. Well, Emily, it's lovely to be here with you. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate you and the work that you are doing. I am Octavia Amaechi. I'm a family medicine physician. I love community, and it's been a passion of mine. And I have been trying to address social determinants of health through my work in everyday patient care, in hospital leadership, in community advocacy efforts, and in being involved in my state medical organizations and what have you. And I think it's very important for everyone to be aware of what's going on in our political climate right now. We don't have the opportunity to say that we are not going to be involved in politics anymore because whether we like it or not, politics is very much a part of our lives and very often dictates what we can and cannot do. So it shapes a huge part of what we encounter, but it also has a heavy role in our future. So we can't just stay on the sidelines, and that's why I'm running. I see so much going on with my patients and with my community. I feel like it's important to get involved.
Absolutely. And in the interest of full disclosure, Octavia and I work very closely together on her campaign. She is part of the Priority 6 initiative taking place in the upstate between the Greenville and Spartanburg Democratic parties, to which I work very closely with as well. And actually was right there with her the day she decided that she was going to jump in this race and run. And so I have been along for the ride with her, and I'm thrilled to let you all learn a little bit more about her and what a fantastic candidate she is. But I'd be remiss if we didn't take a moment to talk about your opponent in this race, because you just found out last night who you were facing in this race. It was a crowded Republican primary. There were four candidates because this is an open seat, right? Scott Talley announced that he would not be running for reelection. And so everyone decided they were going to jump in. And last night was a face off between Lee Bright and Representative Roger Nutt. Tell us a little bit about who came out on top and who you'll be facing and why they are not the right choice and you are.
From what I understand about Roger Nutt is that he's seems to be a career politician that takes the opportunity to move from from session to session, from based on what kind of comes available. I'm not sure how much times he's had to actually run against an opponent. But this time will be very different because we have a community that's ready for change and ready to not allow the extreme policies that he has at sometimes supported and has sometimes changed his mind on, just depending whatever way perhaps the wind blows, I'm not sure. But we are not going to allow for extremists to go unopposed, right, in this area. And it seems like some of the bills that he has sponsored have been very harmful to the women and the people of the upstate and South Carolina as a whole. He has added his name to things that led to the 6-week ban that we have right now. And it seems like some of the other bills that he's passed have been kind of geared towards his own industry, like passing bills to promote engineers or passing bills to allow people who are part of church communities to have access to more privileged land. And I think that's kind of taking the opportunist approach to being in office rather than really seeing how you can serve your community. And I do not think we should stand for that. And we're going to power through November and make sure that he is ousted or doesn't have the opportunity to continue with his policies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this week was a really big week just in the state and in our nation as we marked the 2 year anniversary of the Dobbs decision that struck down Roe. And you have mentioned that your opponent was a big supporter of our 6 week abortion ban here in this state. Talk to us a little bit about, as a doctor, as a physician, as a mother, as a woman, kind of your emotions surrounding the Dobbs decision, how that is impacting your role right now as a candidate.
Well, I will share first as a physician, any infringement in the space that's very sacred to take care of someone's healthcare experience and guide them through sometimes very difficult decisions in their lives is abhorrible. It should not be allowed. We should be protecting privacy and we should be allowing trained professionals to be able to carry out their oath to serve individual patients and families in the way that best serves them. I will, share an example of what happened this week where a patient was simply trying to access a specific method of birth control after we went through all of her options. And then I found out that her insurance company does not allow for her to have access to any form of contraception. And that was
Wow.
pretty jarring to me. So we had to go back and look through, well, what are the options for local opportunities with the health department and making those calls with her. So anytime there's a barrier to patient choice and the best option of care for them, it it creates the opportunity for promoting health inequities and disparities, right? So when it comes to us recognizing we're at the anniversary, the 2 year anniversary mark of the 6 week ban that's been passed, many people across South Carolina have had their right to an abortion, their right to evidence based healthcare stripped away from them. They are leaving the state, right? So it's not that they're not accessing this care, they're going across state lines. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars are spent
Mm-hmm.
for women to have to move to other places to have this done. And the states that are continuing to provide complete health care, including abortions, are being overwhelmed. They're being overwhelmed. And if you think about the health disparities and inequities that we already see here in South Carolina, this is only going to perpetuate this. I personally have spoken with medical students and residents and fellow clinicians who do not feel that this is a safe place for them to practice. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a safe place for them to exist, right, in their own world because they're not certain about what their own journey may be if they're going to not be able to access care that they need when it's necessary. And so they're leaving the state in a state where our maternal mortality rates are already higher than the rest of our country, and even our infant mortality rates are higher than the rest of the country. This is just perpetuating healthcare disparities when we have a loss of intellect and a loss of people who train here in South Carolina, but then make the decision to leave. So
Right, right. And if you have people who are going through that proper training and they can't get the training that they need on how to perform an abortion because it is not available here, they need to then go elsewhere to get that proper training, or they don't have that training at all and it's an incomplete educational process for these medical students. So yeah,
sure.
I mean, absolutely, on a personal level, the impact that this has on these students, and on the professional level, I can totally understand why people are saying this, I can't stay here, I can't practice medicine in this state even though I'm getting trained here, and we would love to keep them in our communities where they've been trained. It's just, it's not possible. And to your point, people aren't not getting their abortions, they're just not getting their abortions here or in a way that is safe, right? So people who have the means to leave will do so. People who do not have the means will still do what they need for what's best for their health care. It just might be unsafe. And then that the repercussions of that for you as a physician, I imagine, are a nightmare as well.
They're alarming. Like you said, if you don't have people who are trained to provide these procedures safely in the first place, then when there are complications for people having it done unsafely, which is what the consequences tend to be when we look at data from other areas and time periods, that people will figure out how to do it, whether it's safe or unsafe. Once again, when they do access emergency care, we're going to run into the same scenario where clinicians are fearful to be involved and the patients may not be able to have them care adequately managed.
Absolutely. And so I wrote a piece this week for the Arena about the benefits of having a physician in the General Assembly and how generally across our nation, physicians are not represented in state legislature because of the need for flexibility to be a legislator is just not the flexibility typically that a physician has in their schedule professionally. So can you talk a little bit about the benefits of having a physician in the ranks of a state legislature and why you specifically are the right physician to fill that void for us?
Absolutely. Well, I have spent some time in Colombia now, and just in the moments that I'm behind the scenes and listening into the debates going back and forth, even within our party, it is very clear that a lot of the policies touch on some aspect of health and well being, whether it's districting how close a grocery store is or supporting family services. These are all things that touch on well being. These are all things that uh, address social determinants, right? So, not just what happens within the encounter with a medical professional, but education, right? Transportation, getting people back and forth so they do have access to get to a hospital or their clinician when necessary. All of these aspects talk about is important and imperative to health and well being. And having a person who has dedicated their life and is the highest trained, has as much training as possible, is particularly, I would say, in my field, family medicine, where we get a very robust and holistic training across medical disciplines. It's imperative to be there at the moment where these discussions are being made. Very often, policies are implemented and put together, and there is no input from someone who is knowledgeable. It's all based on opinion or based on the loudest voice in the room. So, whether people would agree with me or not, they will have facts available when it comes to what is accurate and what is not accurate. And I kind of touched on already how the benefit of having me specifically, a family medicine physician who has made advocacy for my patients, for my fellow clinicians, for my community, really the heart of what I do. I'm very passionate about taking care of people in their whole authentic selves in the context of their lived experiences and making sure that I am not just doing what I think is best, but we always have a shared process for making their world more equitable. So I really feel like my particular lens would aid for forward movement in policies that help serve all South Carolinians.
Yeah, if I had a dollar for every time I heard a legislator in Columbia say, I'm not a doctor, but like, well, maybe you should listen to some of the doctors that are trying to share their expertise with you. Maybe we should have a physician amongst the ranks there because medical policy, all policy in I'm sorry, let me try that again. All policy influences people's livelihood, well-being, potential medical needs, right? When we talk about infrastructure in a community, when we talk about population growth, when we talk about access to public education, all of these things are all tied back into that medical realm, whether it's intentional or discussed ahead of time and planned out ahead of time or not. So yeah, there are a lot of people in Colombia who are very open and honest about not being doctors, yet still feel the need to make decisions that would allow you to think maybe they had some medical training when in fact they do not. Um, so, yes, thank you for that. I think it's kind of astounding that we allow people who don't have that experience in their lives to make the policy decisions that they do. I wouldn't take I wouldn't take my car to the dentist and say, "Hey, can you fix the engine of my car?" Because that's not the expertise of that professional. And so it's always kind of mind blowing to me to be able to see them make those decisions without having to have gone through and get expertise opinion and utilize that to craft that policy. So
The sentiment that I've been sharing is that in other circumstances in a person's life, you wouldn't be able to practice medicine without that experience and a license. But for some reason, um, our lawmakers and policymakers are allowed to completely decide what a clinician can do and cannot do. Again, within the sacred space of a medical encounter, it's quite baffling.
absolutely. And so your campaign video just came out and it features your beautiful family. And as somebody who is a mom myself and has run a campaign, I heard a lot about, oh, well, who's watching your kids while you're doing this? And oh, are you sure this is going to be good for your family that you're running for office? And you don't have too much on your plate. Are you sure you want to be doing this? But you seem to have it beautifully handled and balanced. And I mean, props to you because I certainly haven't figured it out. So please fill me in on your secrets. But how is being a working mom a benefit to not only you and your professional life, but now as a candidate as well?
Thank you. I appreciate that it seems like I have it all together. I have a wonderful village of support, and I have family and close friends that really fill in the gaps when necessary. And I have children, yes, three children that I absolutely adore: high schooler, middle schooler, and one in early education. I try to spend as much time as possible with them. I do quality time over quantity, and they know that I am a mom first. And being a mom first allows me to have, similar to my lens of approaching patient care and the advocacy efforts that I do with the lens of equity, being a mom first always reminds me of what the priorities are. It allows me to put things in context of, well, if I'm trying to raise children in this state, what are their environments? What do I need to support their environments? Whether that's education, working alongside their teachers, working alongside their principals on the parent teacher student organizations that I've been a part of for each of my children. I've been a volunteer class mom, so I know the struggles of teachers in our state trying to make sure that they're providing the best education when classes can sometimes get a bit overcrowded and they're managing multiple different things at once. I understand, when it comes to getting them back and forth to their soccer practice and dance recitals, I get a chance to speak with other parents, right, who have different experiences than me. And I am across all of these spaces, and whether it's being a physician or being a mom and communicating with teachers, or even being a Sunday school teacher, which I had been for very many years, again, having early elementary children and talking with their parents and sharing of what they need and what they see as important in their community, it just adds to the robustness of my experience and my understanding of all different parts of our community. It's imperative that a woman is in our Senate. We have unfortunately lost, and we may be losing more of women who are in our legislature. And it should not be upheld. We should not allow for a society that has both genders, right, and every gender to not have representation in our legislature. We appreciate the efforts and the time away from our families for all people when they step up to serve, but moms, women have a different experience and they need to be present. Their voices need to be heard for our community to be able to advance and get appropriate policies passed.
Yeah. My colleague Melissa Watson Ward is a big fan of saying women's issues are family issues and family issues are community issues. And I think you kind of get to see all of that, right? As a woman, as a mother, as a family physician, you really like I mean, you're the linchpin. You if anyone wants to know what the real problems are that people are facing, you are the person to talk to. So, um, and I think inherently, women who have full plates are very good at time management and giving priority where priority is due when it's necessary. And just generally, I always say that if you have a person with a full plate, you know that they're always going to get done what you need to get done in a timely fashion. So then they can continue on with all of the other things that they're working on in their lives. So there's
Absolutely.
definitely many benefits of working moms stepping up to serve their communities and having a position in that general assembly.
And
What? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll add if there are fellow working moms who ever suffer from mommy guilt, I can add that the evidence shows, right, that children who have mothers who are working outside of the home, they usually are able to um, have very detailed, complex opportunities to problem solve. They recognize, right, that their mother's role inside the home and outside of the home is valuable, and some research shows that they even attain higher levels of education, or at least they're able to serve their communities as well in bigger capacity. So if that gives anyone any solace, keep on doing what you're doing, mamas.
As a working mom who was a daughter of a working mom, I can appreciate that from both sides for sure, for sure. Thank you. And I think there are going to be some women who appreciate hearing that as well. What would you say has been the biggest surprise for you on the campaign trail, whether that's something that you've experienced that maybe you weren't expecting, or something that you thought would be a barrier that actually has been easier to overcome? What has been the biggest surprise as you have gone down this venture?
I will say the biggest surprise that, and I honestly was not expecting this at all. Um, the biggest surprise, and what honestly keeps me 100% going, is when people who are strangers come up to me and share their most heartfelt sentiment about what it means to them that I am running. It almost makes me tear up to say it. On the most difficult days, when I just consider some of the words, some of the hugs, some of the conversations that I've had with people along the way, it lets me know that there is definitely a subsection of the population here that completely feels unheard, completely feels unseen. And that's a huge reason why people are just not getting out to vote. They feel like they don't have an option, that they're not going to be represented anyway, and they just have kind of given up. And when people approach me and tell me, I am going to register to vote this year, or you know what, I haven't been involved, but you give me hope, or they come up and say, hey, Dr. Amaechi, you have changed my mind about this or the other, or when I explain something to someone and they are able to change their perspective or at least have a different viewpoint. You know, that's the whole benefit of having everyday conversations and meeting people where they are, and stop focusing on an agenda or being extreme in one way or the other, but just making sure that all people are heard. It makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference. So that was very surprising to me. And that has been one of the most rewarding parts of this campaign so far. It makes me realize I am certainly not running for myself. I'm running to make a healthier, brighter future for all South Carolinians, and definitely all people who are my neighbors in District 12.
I think I am surprised that that is surprising to you, because what you do for a living is help people through some really difficult situations and have to have really honest and raw conversation. Maybe because you know that you have to do that professionally, you weren't expecting it to carry over, but I'm surprised to hear you say that. That's really interesting, and I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear that there are people who have felt left out of the conversation but see themselves in you as a candidate. And your candidacy spark something in them that maybe they haven't experienced before, because we have a voter apathy problem here in South Carolina, and that's not the voters' fault. That is because of the system that has been created that has allowed people to stay in power without having to run against opposition or have to really fight for their seats because of the lines of their district are drawn so heavily in their favor. That is a disservice to the people. And so it's a big mountain to overcome. And it's one that we're going to be working on, I fear, for quite a bit. But to already see that when you put a quality candidate up, one who has values and lived experiences that mirror the people of their community, that is being seen and appreciated by voters who have felt disenfranchised. So I'm really, really happy to hear you say that. That's something that I think I wish more communities could benefit from. So thank you for that. All right. I'm going to give you a couple questions that are now going to become standard moving forward on the Breathe Hope Vote podcast, because that seems to be a thing. Annie has some games that she plays on her podcast, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of jealous that she has that, so I want to give that a try. But I wouldn't call this a game. Just some standard questions that go along with the theme of the name of the podcast here. So breathe. What do you do for yourself when your work gets really hard, or campaigning gets really hard, or the life of a mother and balancing it all gets really difficult? What do you ground yourself in? What keeps you going and allows you to take that pause and that breath for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Without hesitating, I'm a person of faith. So, falling back on my faith, not just falling back, but letting my faith guide my life is a huge part of who I am. And making sure that I center in that every moment that is a good moment or a difficult moment or something in between, just finding space to recenter, whether that's in prayer or meditation or reading some passages of scripture. That is definitely the number one way that I find my center. Other than that, I am one of those crazy 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m. exercise people. It is what it is. That's when I can get it in. You heard it. I'm a working, busy mom. If the children wake up before I have exercise, it's not happening for the day. So I got to do it in the morning. And absolutely exercising, journaling, having moments of meditation and reflection. Those are key parts of my experience throughout every week. I make it a priority to do those things. It sets the tone for my day, it sets the tone for my week. I am prepared to engage in the world in a meaningful way when I take time first to make sure that I'm good, that I've checked in with myself, checked in my faith is aligned with where I feel like it should be. And then I could be the best mom, I could be the best doctor, friend, community advocate, senator, all of the things that Octavia is.
Absolutely. I love that. And the next question that I have for you has to do with hope. What has given you hope along the campaign trail? What hope do you hold on to when things are getting tough as a candidate and as a mom trying to balance it all?
There's so much. Um, Kind of like with the other question, the first thing that comes to mind is my children. Like I think about their future. I think about the future, not just here in the upstate or in South Carolina, a future America where I want them to feel free to be their authentic selves and be seen as their authentic selves, and for people to recognize them as who they are and to give voice to all people. So that's one. Honestly, the medical students across the country and the work that they have done in the space of advocacy over the past 3 to 5 years have brought about some really crucial conversations within the institution of medicine that have propelled how we view equity and how we view belongingness and how we change our processes. I'm a medical editor for a journal, and even my position on the journal, it came about years and years and years ago because of, just people not being okay with just accepting things as it is. So shout out to the medical students and healthcare students across the country who are sparking change and doing amazing work in their respected fields. And then just my neighbors. seeing everyday hardworking people in difficult and sometimes not so difficult and sometimes extremely difficult circumstances, just pushing through every day and trying to do the best for their families and being positive and believing that change is possible, that gives me a lot of hope.
And my last question has to do with voting, but obviously I know exactly what race that you are most excited for this November, being Senate 12, with you being the Democratic candidate on the ticket. So let's switch it up a little bit. If this is the only opportunity that voters have to hear from Dr. Octavia before they go to the polls, what do you want them to know and walk away with?
If I can have one moment with the voters, I will let them know that if they track back Octavia to her teen years, to her young adult years, to her, I won't say what years we are in now. If you track my record, you will see that I have always, always been passionate about taking care of people, all people in whatever context their lives find themselves in. Not just people who look like me, not just people who pray like me or love like me. I love people, and I believe that aligns with the tenets of my faith. And I can assure you that I would serve all people in South Carolina. And I am truly passionate about making this place, this part of our state, and a little bit better, a little bit happier, and making sure that we are achieving our epitome of well-being, that our health, the health of our community, is going to be my main focus. And just remembering that health is not just what happens within the, four walls of a medical encounter. I am really, really passionate of having every person, every family, every community reach its highest potential.
Okay, and I have to ask this question. I didn't have it written down, but you spent a lot of time talking about your kids. And so I just want to give a moment and ask, what is it like um, for your kids? What feedback did they give you when you were starting this prospect? What have they really enjoyed about you being a candidate and being on the campaign trail? What was the overall reaction from them?
Yeah, so my kids spark the most joy. I can't talk about my children without immediately starting to smile. Um, but their opinion and what they thought about my run was the most important thing to me. I spoke with them individually, and then I spoke with them collectively multiple times to say, this is what this means. Are you okay with this? What do you feel about this situation? And then gave them space at multiple check-in points to say, are you still okay with this? Because once we get started, we're going to be full steam press. And I definitely allow them to tell me how much they want to be involved or how much they don't want to be involved. I'm very clear about autonomy for everyone, and that includes my children. Right? I want to make sure that they have the space to tell me what's going on. I have my high schooler boy, and as you can imagine, as a high schooler, he's like, "Oh, that's okay, that's cool, that's good." He's kind of like, "All right," he'll come along for the ride. He thinks that's wonderful. That's cool. My daughter is so excited. She wants to come along everywhere with me. She wants to do everything with me, and I have to say, no, 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 wait. Schoolwork. Well, you got dance competitions coming up. You've got to be with your team. So I've got to hold, rein her in and say, wait, wait, wait. I appreciate that you want to be involved, but middle schooler, you've got to just do your things on your own. And then the youngest one, he's almost 4, so he doesn't quite understand what's going on, but we've had fun doing some of the campaign videos and shooting some scenes with him because I think he is getting a lot of Zoom time on a lot of virtual meetings with me. So he's been meeting people across the country and across the state and waving and smiling. So everyone will know my son and his dimples pretty soon. But we are having a great time. Everything's about balance. So, as a mom, I have things that I need to do with my children because they have one mom. And while I wholly recognize the importance of being in the community and this campaign trail, but I have one shot with my children, and it does not make me a less candidate, it makes me a better candidate. So, right now, what I need more than anything is your support. I need volunteers to come out and be on the campaign path with me. I need people who will be willing to go out door knocking with me, people who can make financial contributions. It takes a lot to run a state Senate campaign. And you can find out how to get involved definitely by going to my website, octaviaforsc.com. I am on the major social media platforms, Octavia for Senate. We're on Facebook and on Instagram and X, formerly known as Twitter. And we now have a YouTube channel. So if you Google me, you will be able to find a way to get in contact and find a way to support our efforts. The phone number that I could be reached at is 864-342-1833. If you send a text message, I will reach back out. If you call, if it's during the weekdays, I may not be able to answer, but I will reach back out to you, and I appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you so much, Octavia. That was Dr. Octavia Amaechi. I'm Emily Mayer. This is the Breathe Hope Vote podcast through the Arena SC. Be sure to head to thearenasc.com to subscribe to make sure you're not missing any of our content. And you have a great day.